Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery and watched the strange planet grow larger on the main screen. 3 years of traveling through deep space had brought his crew to this moment. The planet looked dead from orbit, but their sensors showed something different. Energy readings pulsed from the surface in patterns that made no sense. "Any luck with those signals, Amy?" Morrison asked his communications officer. Amy Patterson shook her head and frowned at her console. She had been trying to decode the mysterious transmissions for 2 days without success. The patterns were too regular to be natural, but too complex to understand. Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her medical station, where she had been running scans of the planet's atmosphere. "The air is breathable, Jake, but there's something odd about the chemical composition. I'm reading traces of elements that shouldn't exist in nature." Security Chief Tony Rodriguez checked his weapon systems and nodded to Morrison. "Landing party is ready, Captain. I've got full environmental suits prepared and portable shields charged. Whatever's down there, we'll be ready for it." Morrison made his decision. Humanity had traveled farther from Earth than ever before, and this was their first real discovery. The mission required them to investigate any signs of alien life or technology. He couldn't turn back now without answers. The shuttle touched down on a crystalline plain that stretched to the horizon. Strange formations jutted from the ground, like frozen lightning. Each crystal structure pulsed with soft blue light that seemed to follow no pattern Morrison could understand. The air felt electric even through his environmental suit. Carter scanned the area with her medical tricorder while Rodriguez kept watch for any threats. Amy recorded everything for the mission logs. Morrison approached the largest crystal formation, which stood nearly 20 feet tall and hummed with internal energy. "These readings are incredible," Carter called out. "The crystals are generating their own power somehow. It's like they're alive, but not organic life as we know it." Morrison placed his gloved hand against the smooth surface of the nearest crystal. It felt warm even through the insulation of his suit. The blue light inside seemed to respond to his touch by pulsing faster. Something was definitely aware of their presence. A crack appeared in the crystal surface. Morrison stepped back as the fissure spread upward like a lightning bolt, frozen in stone. The other team members moved closer, but kept their distance as Morrison had trained them. First contact protocols demanded caution above all else. The crack widened, and something small moved inside. Morrison could see a pale shape pressing against the crystal wall from within. It looked humanoid, but smaller than an adult human. The movement seemed weak and desperate. "Captain, I'm reading life signs," Carter said with excitement in her voice. "Definitely organic, and definitely intelligent based on the neural activity patterns." The crystal wall suddenly shattered outward. A small figure tumbled onto the ground and lay still. Morrison's first impression was of a human child, but the details were wrong. The skin was pale blue like winter sky, and large violet eyes dominated a delicate face. The creature wore simple clothing that looked woven from some kind of plant. Fiber. Carter moved forward with her medical kit, but the creature scrambled backward in obvious fear. It made sounds that might have been words, but in no language any of them recognized. The being was clearly injured with cuts on its arms and legs that leaked silver, fluid instead of red blood. Morrison held up his hands to show he meant no harm. The creature watched him with those huge violet eyes while making soft, distressed sounds. Something about its expression reminded him of frightened children he had seen during his military service on Earth. Without thinking, Morrison reached up and removed his helmet. The planet's air hit his face with a slight metallic taste, but Carter had said it was safe to breathe. The creature's eyes widened when it saw his human features clearly. "It's okay," Morrison said softly. "We're here to help you." The creature tilted its head as if trying to understand his words. It took a tentative step forward, then another. Morrison knelt down to appear less threatening. The being was definitely a child, or the equivalent in whatever species it belonged to. Carter started to approach again, but the creature shrank back. It seemed to trust only Morrison for some reason. Maybe removing his helmet had shown enough. Vulnerability to earn its confidence. The creature suddenly collapsed. Silver blood spread from its wounds, and its breathing became labored. Morrison realized it was dying, and might be the only member of its species they would ever encounter. First contact was turning into a medical emergency. Morrison moved closer. Despite the risks, the creature watched him approach, but didn't try to escape this time. Its violet eyes held intelligence and something that looked like desperate hope. Morrison reached out his hand palm up in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. The creature looked at his offered hand, then at his face. It seemed to make some kind of decision. With movements that were clearly painful, it crawled forward. Until it could reach Morrison's outstretched arm. What happened next surprised everyone. The creature suddenly bit down on Morrison's wrist, right through his environmental suit. He felt its small teeth penetrate the fabric and pierce his skin. Pain shot up his arm, but he didn't pull away. Something told him this was important. The creature's saliva mixed with his blood where the teeth had broken skin. Morrison felt a strange tingling sensation that spread from the bite up his arm and into his chest. The creature's violet eyes seemed to glow brighter for a moment. Then it spoke its first word in broken English that somehow Morrison understood perfectly. "Pa," it whispered before collapsing unconscious in his arms. Carter rushed forward with her medical scanner. "Jake, your vital signs are changing. Whatever just happened, it's affecting your nervous system." Morrison looked down at the small alien child in his arms and felt something he had never experienced before. A connection deeper than anything he could explain. He knew without understanding how that this creature now belonged to him, and he belonged to it. "We need to get back to the ship," he said quietly. "Both of us." Morrison sat in the medical bay, watching Dr. Carter run tests on both him and the small alien creature. 3 days had passed since the bite incident, and the results were unlike anything in human medical history. The creature, which he had started, calling Kira based on sounds she made when dreaming, was healing at an incredible rate. "Your blood chemistry is changing, Jake," Carter said while studying her readings. "The alien saliva contains some kind of retrovirus that's rewriting parts of your DNA. Not all of it, just specific sequences that seem to be creating compatibility between your biology and hers." Kira stirred on the medical bed next to Morrison's examination table. Her violet eyes opened and immediately searched for him. When she saw Morrison nearby, she relaxed and made a soft purring sound. The silver wounds on her arms and legs had sealed completely, leaving only faint scars. "The really strange part is that she's adapting too," Carter continued. "Her immune system is incorporating markers from your blood. It's like you're becoming biological relatives at the cellular level. I've never seen anything like it." Morrison felt that odd tingling sensation again whenever Kira was close. Sometimes he could almost sense her emotions as if they were his own. When she was hungry, he felt restless. When she was frightened, his heart rate increased. The connection was growing stronger each day. Amy Patterson entered the medical bay, carrying a translation device she had been working on. "I've made some progress with her language, Jake. She's been talking in her sleep, and I've identified about 50 distinct words so far. A structure seems similar to ancient Earth languages, but with some unique grammatical patterns." Kira sat up on her bed when she heard Amy's voice. The child had been wary of everyone except Morrison, but was slowly accepting the other crew members. She pointed at Amy's device and made questioning sounds. "She wants to know what it is," Amy explained. "I think she understands that we're trying to communicate better with her." Morrison nodded to Amy, who activated the translation program. When Kira heard her own language coming from the device, her eyes went wide with surprise and delight. She began chattering rapidly in what sounded like excited questions. "She's asking where we learned her words," Amy translated. "And she wants to know if we've seen others of her kind. She seems surprised that we don't know about her people." Over the following days, Kira's language skills improved dramatically. She absorbed English vocabulary like a sponge and soon could hold basic conversations. Morrison found himself spending every free moment with her, teaching her about human culture and learning about her own background. "My people live in the crystal cities," Kira explained during one of their talks. "We grow the crystals from seeds, and they sing to us. But the dark ships came and broke everything. Mama told me to hide in the singing stone until help arrived." Morrison's heart ached when he heard her story. "Where is your mama now, Kira?" "Looking for me," she said with complete confidence. "Mama is the queen, and she never gives up. She told me the singing stone would keep me safe until family found me." The more Morrison learned about Kira's abilities, the more concerned he became. She could walk through solid walls when she concentrated hard enough. Electronic devices behaved strangely around her when she was emotional. Once when she had a nightmare, every light on the ship flickered for several minutes. "She's not just an alien child, Jake," Carter warned during one of their private discussions. "She's something much more powerful, and we don't understand the implications yet. What if her people consider what happened between you two as some kind of binding agreement?" Morrison had been wondering the same thing. The word Kira had spoken after biting him kept echoing in his mind. Pa meant father in several Earth languages, but what did it mean to her people? And why had the strange, biological connection formed so quickly between them? His questions were answered 2 weeks later when long-range sensors detected approaching ships. The vessels were unlike anything in human databases with organic curves. And that same blue glow Morrison remembered from the crystals. They moved through space without any visible propulsion system. 15 ships approaching from the outer system, Rodriguez reported from his security station. "They're not responding to our communications, but they're definitely heading straight for us." Morrison felt Kira's excitement before she said anything. The child had been playing in the recreation area, but suddenly came running to the bridge. "Mama," she said with joy in her voice. "Mama found us." The lead ship was larger than the others and more ornate in design. It stopped within communication range, and a signal came through on frequencies Amy had never seen before. When she ran the transmission through Kira's language database, the translation made Morrison's stomach drop. "Greetings, human vessel. I am Queen Zara of the Zephyrian people. You have my daughter aboard your ship. I wish to discuss the terms of the bonding that has taken place between her and one of your kind." Morrison looked at Kira, who was practically bouncing with excitement. "Kira, what exactly happened when you bit me?" he asked carefully. "I made you my second papa," she said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. "The blood bond means you're family now. Mama will be so happy to meet you." Carter and Rodriguez exchanged worried glances. This was clearly more complicated than a simple rescue mission. Morrison was beginning to realize that his moment of compassion on the planet's surface had consequences none of them had anticipated. Queen Zara's ship docked with the Discovery, using technology that seemed to merge the two vessels temporarily. When the airlock opened, Morrison got his first look at an adult Zephyrian. She was tall and elegant, with the same pale blue skin and violet eyes as Kira, but with an air of authority that marked her as royalty. Kira rushed to her mother, and they embraced while speaking rapidly in their own language. Morrison caught enough words to understand that Kira was telling her mother everything that had happened. Queen Zara's expression grew more interested as the story continued. Finally, the Queen approached Morrison. She studied his face carefully, then looked at his wrist where the bite marks had healed. "You accepted the parent bond with my daughter," she said in accented but clear English. "Do you understand what this means?" "I'm beginning to think I don't," Morrison admitted. Queen Zara smiled for the first time since boarding. "It means, Captain Morrison, that you are now legally my daughter's second father, and according to our laws that makes you my betrothed husband. Congratulations, you are engaged to marry an alien queen." Morrison stared at Queen Zara, trying to process what she had just told him. Engaged to marry an alien queen because her daughter had bitten him seemed like something from a fever dream. But the serious expressions on the faces of the Zephyrian delegation made it clear this was no joke. "Your Majesty, I think there's been some misunderstanding," Morrison said carefully. "I helped your daughter because she was injured. I had no knowledge of any bonding customs or marriage implications." Queen Zara nodded with understanding, but her expression remained firm. "Intent does not matter in the parent bond, Captain. What matters is that you accepted Kira's claim when she bit you. You could have pulled away or rejected the connection, but you chose to let it form. That choice has consequences." Admiral Patricia Wells' face appeared on the communication screen with anger written across her features. Morrison had requested an emergency conference with Earth Command to explain the situation, but the Admiral's response was not what he had hoped for. "Captain Morrison, you will cease all interactions with these aliens immediately and return to Earth with whatever intelligence you've gathered," Wells ordered. "We cannot allow our first contact with an alien species to be compromised by personal entanglements." Behind Morrison, Queen Zara listened to the conversation with growing concern. "Your people do not approve of the bond," she observed. "It's complicated." "Your Majesty," Morrison replied. "Humans have protocols for first contact situations, and marriage between species wasn't something we planned for." The situation became more tense when General Vex arrived from the Zephyrian fleet. The tall warrior had scars across his blue skin and eyes that held deep suspicion when he looked at the humans. He spoke rapidly to Queen Zara in their own language, and Morrison caught enough words to know he was arguing against the bond. "General Vex believes this is a human trick to gain access to our technology," Queen Zara explained. "He points out that your species has a history of violence and conquest. Why should we trust that your acceptance of Kira was genuine?" Kira, who had been playing quietly nearby, suddenly spoke up. "Papa Jake saved me when I was dying. He took off his helmet to show his face and let me bite him even though it hurt. Bad people don't do that." Morrison felt a surge of gratitude toward the child, but he could see that General Vex was not convinced. The warrior continued his arguments, and Morrison noticed other Zephyrians nodding in agreement. Trust was not going to come easily. "There is a way to prove your intentions," Queen Zara said after discussing options with her advisors. "You must undergo the trial of 3 truths. It is an ancient test that reveals the true nature of one's heart. If you pass, you will be accepted as Kira's second father and my betrothed. If you fail, the bond will be broken, and you will be free to return to your people." Morrison looked at his crew, who were watching the proceedings with growing concern. Dar shook her head, slightly indicating she thought this was too dangerous. Rodriguez had his hand near his weapon, though Morrison knew it would be useless against the advanced Zephyrian technology. "What does the trial involve?" Morrison asked. 3 challenges that test loyalty, courage, and wisdom," General Vex answered. With a grim smile, "Many have attempted the trial. Not all have survived." Admiral Wells' voice cut through the discussion from the communication screen. "Captain Morrison, I forbid you to participate in any alien ritual. You will follow orders and return to Earth immediately." Morrison felt torn between his duty as a human officer and his growing connection to Kira and her people. The child was watching him with those large violet eyes that seemed to see right through him. He realized that whatever he decided would affect not just his own future, but potentially the relationship between 2 entire species. "I'll take the trial," he said quietly. The first challenge took place in the Zephyrian ship's holographic chamber. Morrison found himself standing in a recreation of Earth's surface with human cities burning in the distance. Zephyrian ships filled the sky, and his crew stood before him with weapons drawn. "Choose, Captain." General Vex's voice echoed around the chamber. "Save your people by revealing our weaknesses, or watch your species fall to protect your new family." Morrison studied the scene, knowing it was designed to test his loyalty. But loyalty to whom? The humans who had raised him and given him purpose, or the aliens who had accepted him into their family? The answer came to him clearly. "I choose to find a third option," he said aloud. "I refuse to betray either family. If this scenario were real, I would work to create peace between both sides, rather than choose one over the other." The hologram shifted to show humans and Zephyrians working together to rebuild the damaged cities. General Vex's voice carried a note of surprise. "Interesting answer, human. You think like a Zephyrian." The second challenge tested his courage by placing him in a maze filled with creatures from Zephyrian nightmares. But Morrison noticed that the monsters seemed more afraid than aggressive. Instead of fighting them, he approached slowly and discovered they were actually Zephyrian children transformed by fear. "Courage isn't about fighting monsters," he explained as he helped the frightened children return to normal. "It's about facing fear itself and choosing compassion over violence." The final challenge was the most difficult. Morrison found himself in a perfect replica of the Discovery's bridge with his crew, arguing about whether to trust the Zephyrians. Amy wanted to share human technology. Rodriguez wanted to maintain military superiority. Carter was concerned about biological contamination. "Each choice leads to a different future," Queen Zara's voice explained. "Choose wisely, for the decision you make here will echo through history." Morrison realized this wasn't just a test of his wisdom, but a glimpse of real possibilities. How he handled first contact could determine whether humans and Zephyrians became allies or enemies. The weight of two civilizations rested on his shoulders. "I choose transparency," he said finally. "Both species should know the full truth about each other, including the risks and benefits of contact. Let people make informed decisions rather than choices based on fear or incomplete information." When the trials ended, Morrison found himself back in the real world, surrounded by both his human crew and the Zephyrian delegation. General Vex looked thoughtful rather than hostile for the first time since arriving. "You have passed the trial of 3 truths," Queen Zara announced. "You think like a bridge between worlds rather than a member of just one. This quality will serve both our peoples well." But their moment of victory was interrupted by urgent alarms from both ships. Long-range sensors had detected a massive fleet approaching from deep space. The vessels were dark and angular, unlike either human or Zephyrian designs. "The hegemony has found us," General Vex said with grim certainty. "They've been hunting my people across the galaxy, and now they've traced us here. Your world is in danger, Captain Morrison." Morrison looked at the tactical display, showing hundreds of enemy ships moving toward Earth's solar system. His moment of triumph had become a crisis that threatened everything he held dear. The trial had made him part of the Zephyrian royal family, but now the family was bringing war to his home. Morrison watched the tactical display with growing dread as more hegemony ships appeared on long-range sensors. The enemy fleet was massive beyond anything he had imagined, with vessels that looked like metallic insects crawling through space. War Marshal Torgan's flagship was easily 10 times larger than any human battleship. "How long do we have?" Morrison asked General Vex, who had taken over the tactical station with Queen Zara's permission. "Perhaps 6 days before they reach the outer planets of your system," Vex replied grimly. "The hegemony uses planet cracker weapons that can shatter worlds from orbit. They will destroy everything in this system to prevent our escape." Admiral Wells appeared on the communication screen again, But this time, her anger had been replaced by fear. Earth's long-range monitoring stations had detected the approaching fleet, and the readings were terrifying. Captain Morrison, we're mobilizing every ship in the Earth Defense Force. But our weapons are useless against technology that advanced. We need options. Morrison looked at Queen Zara, who was conferring quietly with her advisors. The Zephyrian. Technology was clearly superior to both human and hegemony designs, but their numbers were pitifully small. 15 ships against hundreds was not a battle they could win through conventional means. Your Majesty, what would you need to protect Earth? Morrison asked. Time and resources we do not have, she replied sadly. Our defensive barriers can shield planets that require days to establish properly. Our weapons are precise, but we lack the firepower to destroy so many ships quickly. Dr. Carter, who had been studying Zephyrian technology, offered a suggestion. What if we combined our capabilities? Human manufacturing speed with Zephyrian knowledge. Our ships might be primitive, but we can build them fast and in large numbers. Morrison felt a spark of hope, but Admiral Wells crushed it immediately. Captain Morrison, you are not authorized to share human military technology with aliens. That is a direct violation of about 50 different regulations. Admiral, with respect those regulations didn't account for humanity facing extinction, Morrison replied. We need this alliance or everyone dies. Against Wells' direct orders, Morrison authorized a full technology exchange between human and Zephyrian. Engineers. Amy Patterson worked with Zephyrian communication specialists to create compatible systems. Rodriguez trained alongside Zephyrian warriors to develop joint combat tactics. Carter collaborated with alien healers to prepare for massive casualties. But the most important development came from an unexpected source. Kira had been spending time in both the human and Zephyrian computer cores, learning about their different technologies. Her unique neural structure allowed her to interface with both systems simultaneously. I can make them talk to each other. Papa Jake, she explained excitedly. Human computers think in numbers, but Zephyrian crystals think in songs. I can translate between them. Morrison realized that Kira's abilities could be the key to victory. If she could link human and Zephyrian systems, their combined fleet would be far more effective than the sum of its parts. But using a child in War went against every instinct he had. It's too dangerous, he told Queen Zara. I won't risk her life. The risk is to all our lives if we fail, Zara replied gently. Kira understands what is at stake. This is her choice to make. The first major battle took place near Jupiter, where a hegemony advance force had arrived to scout Earth's defenses. Morrison commanded a joint task force from the Discovery, while Queen Zara led the main Zephyrian fleet from her flagship. Kira remained aboard the Discovery, where she could coordinate between both groups. The enemy ships were massive and heavily armed, but they moved with the sluggish confidence of predators who expected easy prey. Morrison's combined fleet used hit-and-run tactics that took advantage of human maneuverability and Zephyrian firepower. Incoming transmission from the Hegemony flagship, Amy reported. War Marshal Torgan appeared on screen as a towering figure, covered in metallic armor. His species looked like a cross between humans and machines, with glowing red eyes and voices that sounded like grinding metal. Surrender the Zephyrian refugees, and we will grant your species a quick death, he announced. Morrison looked at Kira, who was connected to both ship systems through fiber-optic cables. She had somehow grown from her fingertips. Tell him we'll give him our answer in battle, Morrison replied. The fight was brutal and chaotic. Hegemony ships fired massive energy beams that could cut through multiple vessels at once. But the human Zephyrian fleet moved like a single organism with Kira, coordinating every maneuver. Human ships would bait enemy fire, while Zephyrian vessels struck from unexpected angles. Morrison watched as the UES Washington took a direct hit that vaporized half the ship. 300 humans died in an instant, including people he had served. With 4 years. The cost of this alliance was already becoming clear, but their tactics were working. Hegemony ships began exploding as Zephyrian weapons found weak points that human sensors had identified. The enemy advance force was destroyed, but at terrible cost. 7 human ships were gone, and 4 Zephyrian vessels had been critically damaged. We won this battle, but the war is just beginning, Queen Zara said as they counted casualties. The main hegemony fleet will arrive soon, and they will not underestimate us again. Morrison studied the battle reports and felt sick at the losses. The enemy still outnumbered them 10-1, and now they knew what to expect. Worse, Admiral Wells was threatening to court-martial him for disobeying orders and sharing military secrets with aliens. "Papa Jake, are you sorry you helped me?" Kira asked quietly while they prepared for the final battle. Morrison looked at the child, who had changed his life so completely in such a short time. Despite everything that had happened, he knew his answer. Immediately, "No, Kira, I'm not sorry. Family protects family, no matter what the cost." The main hegemony fleet arrived 2 days later, led by planet cracker ships that looked like flying fortresses. War Marshal Torgan had brought enough firepower to destroy every planet in the solar system. Earth cities were already being evacuated, but there was nowhere for billions of people to run. Morrison realized this was humanity's darkest hour. Their first contact with alien life had brought them face to face with extinction. But it had also given them allies willing to die for strangers and technology that might save them all. "All ships prepare for final battle," he broadcast to the combined fleet. "Today we're not fighting as humans or Zephyrians. We're fighting as one people defending our home. Make them remember this day." As the massive enemy fleet approached, Morrison felt Kira's small hand slip into his. The connection between them had grown stronger over the past weeks, and now he could sense her determination alongside his own fear. Whatever happened next, they would face it together as a family. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The hegemony's main fleet filled space around Earth like a swarm of metallic locusts. War Marshal Torgan's planet crackers moved into position above major continents, while his battle fleet formed a defensive screen. Morrison knew they had perhaps hours before the enemy began systematically destroying human civilization. Final count shows 800 hegemony vessels against our 63 ships, Rodriguez reported from his tactical station. "Those aren't odds we can win through conventional fighting." Queen Zara stood beside Morrison on the Discovery's bridge, studying the enemy formations. "Torgan is being cautious this time. He's learned from our previous battle and positioned his forces to prevent hit-and-run attacks." Morrison felt desperation creeping into his thoughts, but then noticed Kira working at her interface station. The child had been unusually quiet since the enemy fleet arrived, and her violet eyes held a thoughtful expression he had learned to recognize. "I have an idea, Papa Jake, but you won't like it," Kira said without looking up from her crystal displays. "I can create a permanent link between all our ships and crews. Everyone would be connected like we are. The whole fleet would think and move as one." Dr. Carter immediately objected from her medical station. "That's too dangerous, Kira. We don't know what permanent neural linking would do to human brain chemistry. It could kill everyone involved. Or it could save everyone," Queen Zara said quietly. "My people have legends of the great linking from ancient times when all Zephyrians shared one consciousness. It was said to grant incredible power, but at great cost." Morrison studied the tactical display and realized it might be their only chance. The hegemony's advantage came from superior numbers and coordination. If the human Zephyrian fleet could achieve perfect unity, they might overcome those advantages. "What would happen to individual identity?" Morrison asked. "Would we still be ourselves?" "I think so," Kira replied uncertainly. When I connect to the ship computers, I'm still me, but I can also be them at the same time. It's like being part of a bigger family. The first planet cracker fired its main weapon at the moon as a demonstration of power. The ancient satellite cracked like an egg and began falling apart in slow motion. Torgen's message was clear: surrender or watch Earth suffer the same fate. Morrison made his decision. I'll do it. Link me to the fleet. Jake, this is insane, Carter protested. The neural feedback could stop your heart or cause permanent brain damage. We have no idea what we're dealing with. We're dealing with extinction if we do nothing, Morrison replied. At least this gives us a chance. Queen Zara placed her hand on his shoulder. If you do this, you will be changed forever. There may be no way back to what you were before. Morrison looked at Kira, who was preparing the linking apparatus with tears in her large violet eyes. Are you crying because this is dangerous for me? He asked gently. I'm crying because I'm proud of you, Papa Jake, she replied. You're willing to change yourself to save everyone else. That's what real parents do. The linking process began with Morrison, connected to both the Discovery systems and Kira's neural interface. At first, he felt nothing unusual, but then awareness began expanding beyond his own thoughts. He could sense Queen Zara's fierce determination and Dr. Carter's worried concern. Rodriguez's tactical mind became part of his own thinking. The sensation spread throughout the fleet as each crew member was drawn into the growing network. Morrison experienced the fear and courage of hundreds of people all at once without losing his own identity. Instead of being overwhelmed, he felt strengthened by their combined will to survive. All ships report ready for synchronized combat. Came the voice of every communications officer speaking in perfect unison. The fleet awaits your orders, Captain Morrison. Through the neural link, Morrison could see the battle from every angle simultaneously. Each ship's sensors became his eyes, and each weapon system responded to his thoughts. The human Zephyrian fleet moved with precision that seemed impossible for separate vessels. War-Marshal. Torgen's forces attacked, expecting another conventional battle, but found themselves facing something entirely new. The Allied ships flowed around enemy formations like water, finding every weak point and exploiting it instantly. Hegemony vessels found themselves outmaneuvered by opponents who anticipated their every move. Impossible. Torgen's voice roared across all frequencies. No organic species can achieve such coordination. What have you become? Morrison spoke with the voice of his entire fleet when he answered. We've become something you can't understand. We've become family. The battle raged through Earth's orbital space with debris from destroyed ships, creating deadly clouds of metal and energy. Morrison felt each loss as a personal wound when Allied vessels were destroyed, but the network held together through sheer determination. Kira's abilities proved crucial when the largest planet cracker attempted to fire on Earth's surface. She somehow reversed the weapon's polarity, causing it to implode and take 3 other hegemony ships with it. The child was pushing her powers beyond safe limits, and Morrison could feel her pain through their connection. Kira, you need to rest, he said through the neural link. Can't stop now, Papa Jake, she replied with exhaustion coloring her mental voice. Too many people depending on us. The turning point came when Morrison realized they could use the hegemony's own weapons against them. Through the neural network, he coordinated a complex maneuver that captured several enemy vessels intact. Zephyrian boarding parties took control, while human engineers learned to operate alien systems. War-Marshal. Torgen's flagship became isolated as his fleet fell apart around him. The proud warrior found himself facing defeat by the very species he had dismissed as primitive. His final transmission was filled with rage and disbelief. This victory changes nothing, he snarled. Others will come to finish what we started. The hegemony does not forget or forgive. Then they'll find Earth defended by 2 species who've learned to fight as one. Morrison replied, before ordering the final attack that destroyed Torgan's ship. When the battle ended, Morrison expected the neural network to dissolve, but instead it stabilized into something new. The permanent connections between humans and Zephyrians created a hybrid consciousness that maintained individual identity while enabling unprecedented cooperation. 3 months later, Morrison stood in the gardens of New Terra, watching children from both species play together under an alien sun. The joint colony was humanity's first world beyond Earth, and proof that two very different civilizations could create something beautiful together. Kira ran up to him with a group of friends that included both human and Zephyrian children. She had grown taller in recent weeks, and her abilities had stabilized into something manageable rather than dangerous. "Papa Jake, look what we learned," she said excitedly. The children joined hands and their eyes began to glow with soft light. For a moment, Morrison could sense their combined happiness and wonder through the neural network that now connected both species. "We're going to be explorers like you when we grow up," announced Danny, a human boy who had befriended Kira immediately.